Tonight's CBS late movie, Magnum, followed by McCloud, will begin immediately following a CBS News special report on today's Pennsylvania primary. CBS News coverage of Campaign 84 continues. Tonight, the Pennsylvania primary. Reporting from CBS News election headquarters in New York, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening. The Fritz Blitz punched out Gary Hart and Jesse Jackson tonight in the Pennsylvania primary. Walter Mondale playing the lead role as Pennsylvania's Rocky Balboa and winning the sequel to his last big win last week in New York. Tonight's prize, the biggest cut of the 172 convention delegates chosen. And Mondale did it by running well, even in the big city turf of Jesse Jackson and Gary Hart's own front lawn among the young and the restless in suburbia, and running extremely well most everywhere else in Pennsylvania. The numbers from Pennsylvania tell the story. With 69% of the precincts reporting now, the winner Walter Mondale's lead over second place Gary Hart is about 46% to 34%, with Jesse Jackson running a strong third but a definite third. Now, there is a separate contest for the 172 delegates at stake today in Pennsylvania. The vote on that, the vote count is going much more slowly, but based on districts from which a significant number of returns have come in, here is how some of the 172 delegates chosen today in Pennsylvania are being proportioned. Mondale with an overwhelming lead in the delegates we estimate coming out of Pennsylvania, based on the fact that his win in Pennsylvania in the popular vote is by such a wide margin. We'll have more about the delegate count a little later on in the broadcast. But any way you cut it, delegate count or popular vote, another big round for Walter Mondale, another big chill for Gary Hart in this last of the eastern Frost Belt industrial states, the last big contest for about a month. Bob Schieffer now has more on a victory that seems to be based on a big win for old alliances over new ideas.
Mondale wedged in a trip to Ohio this afternoon, but he hustled back to Philadelphia tonight as the size of his victory was becoming known. He told reporters at the airport that voters who waited until the last minute to make up their minds were the ones who made the difference.
This was very close a few days ago. I believe we've had our debate. I think the voters of Pennsylvania listened to that debate and decided rather heavily to vote for me.
Our CBS News New York Times voter survey backed up Mondale's analysis. The survey showed that half the people who voted today did not make up their minds until this past week, and the largest block of those who decided late went for Mondale. The economy was the only issue that really mattered in this state, where closed steel mills and hard times in the mining industry have left unemployment near double digits. 3/4 of the people we questioned said unemployment or helping poor people were the issues that most concerned them. And nearly half the people we questioned said either they or someone in their family had been out of work and looking for a job over the past year. Gary Hart's strategist said last week he had to broaden his base beyond the young, upwardly mobile crowd he usually attracts, but he was unable to do so. He still did well among more affluent voters and college graduates, but here they were not as large a segment of the vote as they were in states such as Connecticut, where Hart won. Jackson again got his support almost exclusively from blacks. He attracted only 4% of the white vote. Philadelphia's black mayor, Wilson Goode, endorsed Mondale, but the endorsement apparently had no impact on black voters. Even so, Goode insisted he was not surprised.
I've said all along that I felt that Walter Mondale would win by between 5 and 10 points. I've also said that I felt that he would receive about 25% of the black vote. There's nothing which I thought would happen that did not happen.
Whatever the case, Jackson is carrying the city of Philadelphia tonight, and if he were not in the race, it would be a complete rout in Walter Mondale's favor, because among the Jackson voters that we questioned, they said that their second choice would be Walter Mondale by almost 2-1 over Gary Hart. Dan?
Thank you, Bob. In a moment, we'll be back with the candidates to ask them a perhaps hard question. Where do they go from here?
This portion of CBS News coverage of Campaign 84 is sponsored by American Express Traveler's Checks. Don't leave home without them. And by Sun Company, where there's sun, there's energy.
Under this snow, there's more oil than in Saudi Arabia. 20 years ago, Sun Company developed a process to get oil from tar sands. Since then, a lot's developed around here. Jobs, a community, hockey teams. The energy's not just under the snow, it's everywhere, even on the ice. At Sun, we think that putting our energy back into a community is just as important as getting it out.
Where there's sun, there's energy.
Step this way.
No, it's just my keys.
Could you empty all of your keys?
Wait a minute, Stu, do you have the traveler's checks?
No.
No.
I thought you had
I got news for you. I can't find them.
It was your keys.
Yeah, fine, thank you.
What's the problem?
We've lost our traveler's checks.
You can get a refund to the American Express machine down the hall.
No,
But they weren't American Express.
Oh, they weren't. What time's your flight?
You know, nobody but American Express can give refunds to traveler's check machines in most major U.S. airports. Don't leave home without them.
Walter Mondale now has won 3 of the 6 largest states holding contest in this election season. By CBS News estimates, he has more than half the delegates needed for nomination. At the San Francisco Democratic Nominating Convention this summer, 1,967 votes needed to be nominated. We estimate that from all sources all over the country, what's happened thus far, Mondale has passed the 1,000 plateau. This includes what we know about what he gathered in Pennsylvania today. Hart, 571, Jesse Jackson, 146. Mondale with a commanding lead, not necessarily a decisive lead yet, but a commanding lead in the delegate count. Earlier this evening, we asked Mr. Mondale if he didn't think it was time for Gary Hart to withdraw so the party could unite behind Mondale.
No, I think that's for Gary Hart to decide. By no means is he out of this race. Nearly 50% of the delegates are yet to go. We have several major states. The debate will, I'm sure, carry on. I think that's his choice, and I assume he's going to continue the fight, and it may well go right into the convention.
Have you talked to him about withdrawing?
No, I wouldn't do that, and I would consider it presumptuous on my part, and if he, I would guess that he feels he's still got a good chance here, and he'll want to carry on, and that's his right.
Don't you now think that you on the road to having enough votes on the first ballot in San Francisco to have this thing tied up before the convention?
No, I think there's a chance. I would say that after tonight. In other words, this is a very important victory, and I think this now gives me a chance to do it.
Well, that's a change, though. Up to, between New Hampshire and tonight, you've been saying you thought this thing would go right to the convention floor.
And it may well, but I think now I've got a chance, just a chance, that if I can continue to make this debate as I have and gain the support of the public as I've been doing, that I've got a chance now to win this nomination and go into that convention, possibly with enough votes to assure nomination. I'm not sure of that, but I think I now have a chance.
Haven't you already cast yourself as what the president no doubt will call the cut-and-run party, and he has cast himself as the one who stands up to the Cubans and the Soviets in Central America and elsewhere?
No, as a matter of fact, I think there's a very strong case that what he has done has strengthened the Cubans and the Soviets far more than would have been the case, because he's undermined the moral appeal of our position. When you abandon human rights, when you look the other way when these death squads are occurring, that strengthens our enemies. I just don't think there's any question about it. They really don't know what they're doing down there.
In spite of a downbeat day at the polls in Pennsylvania, Gary Hart seemed upbeat in Denver tonight as he looked to the future. Senator, good evening. Thanks for being with us. Walter Mondale told us tonight he now feels that he has a chance to wrap up the nomination before the convention opens. What do you think?
I don't believe so. I think this, as each of us has described it in the past, a marathon. It'll go all the way. I believe that I will have a majority of the delegates going into the convention, but that may not be apparent even by early June. We'll wait and see.
Well, have you given any thought to getting out and trying to unite the party behind Walter Mondale?
No, of course not. In fact, the calendar in the second half of this nomination race is very, very favorable towards my candidacy. We move into my part of the country, we move west, we move southwest, we move south. The hardest states for us have been the industrial northeastern states, where Mr. Mondale's labor strength and his ties with the political establishment clearly gave him a great boost.
Does this loss in Pennsylvania drastically hurt your ability to raise money?
No, not at all. We've had extremely good success throughout the last 3 or 4 weeks in direct mail and direct solicitation. And in fact, our fundraisers feel very, very positive about our ability to finance this campaign as we move along. As you know, Mr. Mondale's campaign is now being financed almost exclusively by political action committee funds through independent committees. And I think the differences in the style of financing will become an issue as we move along also. We have just come through the worst part of this race for this campaign. We started out very fast in the early primaries and caucuses. We won 15 of those primaries and caucuses to date. And I am the principal contender to Mr. Mondale. He's now had his best states, and our best states remain ahead for us. So we're very upbeat about this race.
Thank you very much, Senator Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Rather.
We'll hear from Jesse Jackson about his plans after a bit. With images of the candidates changing as the campaign rolls along, Bruce Morton looks at what the campaign managers have in mind as their candidates seek some breathing room. Bruce?
Dan, the images voters have of the candidates have already changed a lot. Now the campaigns have some time to draw breath and think about what other changes they want to make. We asked some of the campaign handlers what they wanted to do now that the one-a-week grind is over. Here's what they said. First item in the Mondale camp, rest the candidate. Hasn't had a day off, they said, since New Hampshire. Lots of 15-hour days lately. Rest the candidate. Second, raise the amount of money they're allowed to raise under the spending limit. With wins in New York and Pennsylvania, that'll be easy. Third, give Mondale's campaign some beef, some genuine positions. Working women have tended to be for Hart. In Pennsylvania, Mondale came out strongly in favor of comparable pay for comparable work, a woman's issue. More to follow. Then woo uncommitted delegates and start planning strategy for a convention that for once may be a catfight and not a coronation. Hart. First, again, rest the candidate. But that fights with item 2, raise money. They have Hart down for a heavy fundraising schedule. Rest may have to wait. 3, have the big meeting. You have those when things go badly. They'll talk about whither the campaign. Some disagreements. Some want the campaign simply to keep emphasizing new ideas, new leadership. Others think the candidate and the ad should spell out some of those ideas. Some want to keep attacking Mondale. Others don't. Those kinds of issues will have to be resolved. For Jesse Jackson, first, second, and third, find the rainbow. Jackson ought to have some liberal whites in his corner, those who want to cut defense spending, increase social spending. Has an anti-Jewish remark by Jackson and divisive talk by a supporter driven them away? If so, how does the campaign get them back? Second, figure out what to bargain for at the convention and whether to deal or to present a list of non-negotiable demands. For all of them, there's a month's worth of work there. Dan?
Bruce, the candidates will need all the grouping time they can command. The next big day on the campaign schedule comes up May 5th. On Saturday, May 5th, Texas and Louisiana have Texas's caucuses, Louisiana has its primary. Just 3 days later, another sizable group of delegates to be wooed and won. And finally, the last major event on the pre-convention calendar, June 5th, when California heads a rather long list of states holding contests.
People get a lot of fish out of these waters, and Sun Company gets a lot of oil. Over 3 million barrels a year. We know that sea life was here long before we were. This is the drill. That's why we have practice drills like this. In case of a spill, our containment unit would quickly surround the oil and help prevent damage. At Sun, we think putting our energy back into the environment is as important as getting it out.
Where there's sun, there's energy.
Come drift into sleep, set sail on a voyage into the night.
Night voyages on Spring Air. Our back supporter mattress is a unique support system. Exclusive springs form a special health center that's a dream to sleep on.
The most beautiful nights are on Spring Air.
Night voyages on Spring Air. Sleep first class.
It's the president. At AT&T, we never know how important any call will be.
Mr. Ryan, it's the chairman.
That's why every product AT&T makes, every business system,
It's MGM.
every inch in the millions of miles of our long-distance network,
It's Rome.
and every single technical innovation is made to handle every call
It's Bobby.
as if it were the most important call in the world.
Hi.
AT&T. We're reaching out in new directions.
When you burn the candle at both ends, there's a vitamin just for you. Advanced formula stress tabs with biotin. A vitamin not found in other stress formulas. A vitamin essential to help convert food to energy. When you burn the candle at both ends, support your diet with advanced formula stress tabs with biotin, the official stress formula vitamin of the 1984 Winter Olympics.
Phase one of the primary and caucus season coming to an end, a pause, and then it takes up again in about 3 weeks. With me here in our studio to talk about where it's been and where it may be going is my colleague and friend Bill Moyers. Bill, what do these Democratic candidates have to do? What should they be doing over the next 3 weeks until the next big primary and caucus day?
Well, first, none of them can take anything for granted, and that includes Walter Mondale. He's not Mr. Inevitable, although he's Mr. Frontrunner, as much as he might dislike that title. In fact, Mondale is not in as good a shape as he hoped to be 2 months ago. He hoped to be resting right now and planning the strategy against Ronald Reagan. He's still having to scrap for this nomination, and it's going to be a scrap right down, I think, to the convention. His job is to keep the momentum. He's got it back. It's not as big a momentum as he would have had if Hart hadn't come along in such fine fettle. He's got to keep the momentum. He's got to keep on keeping on, and that's a little easier than Hart's problem. Hart has to find a message. Last week in New York, he exaggerated his differences with Mondale and lost. In Philadelphia this week, Pennsylvania this week with Mondale, he narrowed his differences and he lost. It isn't any longer good enough to run against wrinkles and for new ideas. He's got to find a message that will tell people he truly is different from Mondale and has a personality and a program that's better than either Mondale or Reagan. Jesse Jackson has still a slightly different challenge. He's got to define his mission. He's not going to get the nomination. He's translated black pride into black power. Now the test is whether he can translate black power into the kind of politics that enables him to achieve at the San Francisco Convention what he and his voters want him to do.
Well, Bill, these things we get so wrapped up in as reporters, but even for us, try to follow it every day, these things frequently get about as complicated as a wiring diagram for a generator plant. But in the overview, let me ask the question that I asked right after the New York primary. Isn't the big winner out of Pennsylvania Ronald Reagan? The Democrats again cut each other up, spread the votes out. Seems to me that Ronald Reagan may be the big winner.
Yes, but something else has happened in the meantime. This debate on foreign policy has brought some hardship to Ronald Reagan in Washington. He's not the commanding leader tonight that he was a week or 10 days ago. Even the Republicans in the Senate, Barry Goldwater, for example, are giving him a hard time on foreign policy. That just suggests that no matter what happens in this Democratic primary, caucus fight, and the race to San Francisco and the convention, any number of unforeseen contingencies can upset the apple cart after San Francisco. So any one of these Democrats says, I'll worry about that down the road, let me get that nomination, and then events will help me get Ronald Reagan.
And we remind ourselves, as we keep reminding everybody else, still a long way to go. We'll be back with more in a moment.
When General Electric was choosing a charge card to issue to their executives, they needed one honored at hotels, restaurants, and airlines worldwide. One that gave their executives financial freedom with its flexible spending limit. One that's now backed by a financial leader, Citicorp. The card they chose to plug into was the Diners Club card. So apply for one, because the bright idea that works for the executives at GE will work for you. Citicorp Diners Club, when you mean business.
Why American business trusts Emery.
When an oil rig has to wait for a part, money goes down the drain. I trust Emery's same-day service.
When I send critical lab tests to 10 hospitals overnight, I count on Emery for results.
Sending documents for million-dollar deals across the country doesn't intimidate me. I trust Emery, desk to desk.
Over 1 million customers trust Emery to deliver. Call Emery. We've earned the trust of American business.
At Channel 5, we know how important a good education is to you and your child.
That's why we take a little extra time to tell the education news that matters the most. That includes the good news about scholastic achievement and great moments. We're proud that Tennessee Education Association recently expressed confidence in our extra coverage by giving us a School Bell Award. When it comes to news about education, we're the friend you can turn to with confidence. Eyewitness News on Channel 5.
Be good to yourself. Attend the Channel 5 Health Fair.
I'm Anita Davis from the Lentz Public Health Center on 23rd Avenue North. If you think you're in good health, a good way to find out for sure is to attend the Channel 5 Public Health Fair at the Lentz Center on April 11th and April 12th. The times are 8:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. These screenings cost little or no money. Hope to see you at Lentz Center April 11th or 12th.
Attend the Channel 5 Health Fair.
Standing by tonight in Philadelphia, where he ran very well indeed, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who once again captured by far and away the imagination and the votes of the vast majority of urban blacks, but outside of that, very little. Good evening, Reverend Jackson. Again, thank you for being with us. How much do you want to beat Ronald Reagan?
Well, want to beat him very badly. I'm convinced that we must represent an alternative to Reagan. We must expand our party, and that's the key to victory.
Well, is the runoff primary, which in some states historically has favored white candidates, is the runoff primary more important than 4 more years of Ronald Reagan?
Well, in the one sense, to end second primaries is the key to ending Ronald Reagan. For if we expand the party and make room for blacks, for Hispanics, for women, and for young people, we will change the face of the U.S. Congress, and much of what has been proposed by Reagan can be abolished. Even if Reagan were to win again, if we were to, in fact, have equity in the Congress, would have enough strength there to protect the interests of the poor and the locked out.
Well, is changing the delegate selection rules, is that more important than beating Ronald Reagan?
Well, it is not, but I do not know why we must have such a trade-off. The fact of the matter is we need to have delegate selection rules that enfranchise all the members of the Democratic Party. We should not have to choose between democracy within our party on the one hand and our confronting Reagan on the other. We really can do both. And I would hope that Hart and Mondale and I will be able to meet with our staffs before the convention and resolve some of these matters and not have a showdown in San Francisco.
Well, this is the point I was trying to get to with that sequence of questions. Realistically, can Jesse Jackson really refuse to support Walter Mondale or Gary Hart against Ronald Reagan?
Well, I think realistically we must engage in mutually respectful negotiations. We must be heard this time around. And I do not think that we can just act as if Reagan is the sole problem. After all, the use of gerrymandering, annexation, at-large schemes, and second primaries to deny blacks their share of participation in our democracy is coming oftentimes at the hand of Democrats. We must fight Democrats on the one hand to do right about the locked out, and then use our collective strength to fight Republicans. We cannot just act as if our problem is solely with Ronald Reagan, because that's not true.
But again, and we have only a few seconds left, can you, under any circumstances, afford not to support Mondale or Hart against Reagan?
Well, the flip side of the question is, can Mondale or Hart, under any circumstances, ignore the legitimate quest to enforce the Voting Rights Act? After all, the next president would take an oath that would say, I will uphold the law. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 is the law. Mr. Mondale, by equivocating, is dragging out a matter that should not even be up for discussion. Enforce the law, and therefore satisfy a very legitimate request that I am making.
Thank you very much, Reverend Jackson, and congratulations on that strong showing in Philadelphia.
Thank you very much.
A final look at tonight's big win for Walter Mondale overall in Pennsylvania. Halfway through the primary season, with more than half the delegates now chosen, Walter Mondale tonight battling at least 1,000 delegates in this election 1984 convention delegate quest. That is, he's batting better than 1,000, in which the magic winning number at the Democratic Convention in San Francisco will be 1,967. And the Mondale magic was in evidence tonight, winning by the numbers and by stressing some old ideas popular with the old Democratic coalition. Here's how it worked in Pennsylvania. With 71% of the precincts reporting, the winner Walter Mondale's winning percentage is now running on the order of 46 to 34% over Hart, with Jackson getting 20%. This is with 71% of the precincts from the whole state reporting. Now, of the 172 delegates at stake today in Pennsylvania, keeping in mind that the delegate race there was something separate from the popular vote, and the returns from it are coming in very slowly, here is how some of the delegates decided thus far we believe have been apportioned. Mondale 88, Hart 15, Jackson 2. And so tonight, the end of the Eastern Industrial Frostbelt phase of the primary season, the end of phase 1 of the quest for the nomination, a quest that now moves beyond winning beauty contests to winning for what's the only hard currency that counts, delegates to the San Francisco Convention. For the next month or so, Walter Mondale, Gary Hart, and Jesse Jackson get a break in the action and a much-needed chance to reflect on where they've gone right and where they've gone wrong. And perhaps more important, a chance for the rest of us to think about that too. For CBS News, Dan Rather at CBS News Election Headquarters in New York. Good night.
Recently, when some of America's top corporations were choosing a charge card for their executives, one card stood out. Corning Glass clearly saw the benefits of a card honored worldwide. United Technologies was very high on the financial freedom of its flexible spending limit. And because it's from Citicorp, it appealed to the hard-driving executives at Mack Trucks. Apply for a Diners Club card, because what works for the executives at these corporations will work for you. Citicorp Diners Club, when you mean business.
Welcome to today's Quality Audit Review. Every morning, special teams of General Motors people meet to talk about the cars they built the day before. They're called Quality Audit Teams, and their involvement has given GM a better way to deliver the quality you want. We've got a fine car here. When they're through, they take their knowledge back to the line. Nobody sweats the details like GM.
This portion of CBS News coverage of Campaign 84 was sponsored by General Motors. Extra time, extra effort, and attention to every detail. GM is committed to excellence. And by Citicorp Diners Club, when you mean business. This is CBS.
This week at Castner Knott, save up to 35% on these beautiful bedroom ensembles.